moving on to the fourth Tech Talk of the day, I would like to welcome Mr. Anil Baghdari, the CEO of Arcon. Welcome back to the stage, Mr. Anil. I would also like to welcome our panelist CIOs for this round. Salim Ahmed, the SVP and Head of IT at Sharjah Islamic Bank. Dr. Mohammed Khalid, CIO of the Regulations and Supervision Bureau in Abu Dhabi. Uni Menon, IT Manager at RAG Hospital. And Ajay Rathi, the Director of IT at Miras Holdings. Big round of applause, please. Please take your seats.
Well, very good afternoon to you all, an early evening, rather. And I know it's towards the end of this program, so I'm going to be very, very quick. I intend to pass a couple of messages and try and wrap this around some reality that I have seen while I travel across the world. Honestly speaking, I don't even know what to talk to you because, you know, you're the elite technologist. Of course, doing cutting-edge technology work, and that's how you've been invited here. But somewhere down the line, I've never believed that technology could change us so much. But as you progress, and it really hits you on the face, I had no idea that rockets could land straight, for example, no idea that drones could deliver packets. Dubai actually has invited almost 100-odd vehicles to do an automated driving, and so on and so forth. So the world is changing so fast. I don't know if you've recently looked at Facebook. Facebook is actually trying to do buy and sell on the platform. I don't even know whether there's going to be Amazon in the future because Facebook literally has a large amount of population, right? And I just have this one slide which I copied when I was in New York in December, and it was the Macy's store there, and it said believe. And really, this really hits you. I was in one of the Gartner programs 2 years back, I think, in Dubai. And Steve Wozniak was actually giving a keynote session. And he said, what wouldn't make you think that we are not into this virtual reality world? We have all the possible technologies that you could talk about, self-healing, virtual reality, what we see, what we consume, what we ingest, and how we respond and how quickly that is. What I'm trying to impress upon you in the next 2 or 3 minutes is everything that you see and talk about technology is really getting implemented in the real sense. And I've got a couple of examples that I've taken snaps of. People say that there would be no cities in the future. People would actually stay in tall buildings, climate control, and so on and so forth. I don't know whether to believe that or not. But I'm not sure if you've been to, if you go to London, and just 2 hours from London, there's something called as Project Eden. So I don't know if you've been there. It's a wonderful place. It's actually the old mines. And what they have done is they have transformed it completely. And there's something really interesting there. There are these domes, and they're all climate controlled. And they're all the 4 climates that you can see across the world, Mediterranean, and so on and so forth. If you get into this, do I really point it? Oh, yeah. So if you walk into these domes, there's life in these domes, there are plants and all of that there. It's so interesting. The height of the dome is really as good as you could see the sky. You actually feel that you're living in a world wherein everything is just about you, right? But this is not reality. This is artificially constructed. Same time, I was going to Cornwall for a holiday, and I happened to go to a restaurant which is nothing but a McDonald's restaurant, right? And in a McDonald's restaurant, typically, if you go to any restaurant here in Dubai, you would be greeted by whom? You would actually go to counters to be able to order stuff. Interestingly, there is no counter to order stuff, right? And it's all machine. Well, we're used to machine, doesn't matter. So you go and you click in what you want, you order in, and you pay through your contactless cards and stuff like that. But at the end of the day, you really want to be able to get to the burger, right? And interestingly, look at this counter. There is just about nobody at this counter. The burger is actually delivered by a machine to you. And this is a 100-seater McDonald's restaurant. They're trying to get it delivered through machine. On the right-hand side that you see a lady there. She's the only lady in the entire restaurant serving just about 100 of clients there. 100-seater restaurant. Amazing, unbelievable. And as you travel more, airports, I think we're all familiar with airports, but I was recently in Sydney Airport. There is just nobody at the counters. Qantas and, absolutely nobody. There is just this one lady standing right at the counter where you go to security, right? Just nobody at the counter, only machines. You check in, you do everything yourself. Of course, we're all used to check in, doing the online checking and stuff like that, but here is where machines actually tell you, hi, good afternoon, good morning, can I help you? Put in your bags, doing everything, check in, check out. It happens recently, I'm sure Abu Dhabi and Dubai, you're seeing a lot of these stuffs in immigrations as well. If you go to Sainsbury restaurant in London, and this was in Slough, for example, you would, last year, just a year back, you would see counters and counters and people. They're just these large scanners right now. There's nothing else. Why? Because the scanning technology is undergone a change. You buy something, put in there, boom, it scans it, and it moves on. Even ask you, do you want a bag? And if you want a bag, you press a button, and the bag actually falls down. So on the right-hand side, you see the orange bags. Again, there are no people on the counter. There's just this one lady, and there are 30 checkout counters, but they're all machines, literally. I wouldn't take time with you on this because I think all of us would have seen this video. This is actually Reimagine the Reimagine. What it literally does is, this is an Amazon store video. You buy in anything, you just walk in and walk out. What I'm trying to impress upon you here is that people are trying to innovate to make your life simpler. People are saying, do I really need counters? Do I really need bills? Do I really need invoices? What I need is, I need to walk in, be able to pick up what I want to pick up, put it in my pocket or put it wherever, and just walk out of this store. And the invoice actually literally comes to you on a WhatsApp. Now, why am I trying to tell you all of this? The intent of telling you all of this is, while technology changes our life, technology is going to transform businesses. And let me just try and ask you to reimagine power, for example. If you go to the United States, the target in the United States is 30 to 40% of the power would be produced by you and me. In India, for example, the minister has set up a target that solar power production would literally be 60% in the next 10 to 15 years. Now, how does it matter to us as technologists if power is going to be produced by us? What's going to actually literally change is just about everything in technology. Everything in technology. Can you imagine what would change if the power is produced by us? Your metering would change. You would have a net metering. Your accounting solution would change. You would no longer have maybe the SAPs in the Oracle because producers, the consumers are actually becoming producers. I repeat, consumers are literally becoming producers. And if consumers become producers, where is the concept of vendors? Where is the concept of revenue assurance? You need to relook at entire technology stack that a power company would have. Forget about the fact that the power company may not be there, but the technology stack of the entire power company undergoes a change. Similarly, if I were to relook at a bank, I used to tell people that you would probably not see bank in the next 10 years. I don't know whether you believe this or not. I used to say that because there could be crowdfunding and there would be no bank. But today, it is actually API banking, digital banking, and API banking, which is actually taking over. What does API banking do? API banking lets you connect as consumers directly into the core banking system. Can you imagine that? You are talking to a core banking system about your balances, and the fintech companies are going to take over and run all the periphery of the bank. And I have got a slide which hopefully would try and explain to you. On the left-hand side, what you see is every element that a bank does. And on the right-hand side, what you see is these are the logos that these are the fintech companies which are working in every aspect of a bank. So if you talk about treasury, you talk about KYC, you talk about regulatory, you talk about foreign exchange transaction, you talk about payments, literally all of them are being taken over by the fintech companies. Why? Because the banks are providing the APIs. And if you were to extend this discussion to our telecommunication companies, interestingly, I'm not sure if you're aware about India, but we have this big businessman called Mr. Ambani from Reliance Industries. He comes back on the stage and says, hey, ladies and gentlemen, voice is a democratic right. I want to give it free to you. Can you imagine that? The business of telecommunication was voice. He comes on the dais and says, voice is a democratic right, I want to give it to you free. Tomorrow, probably he'll come back on the stage and say, data is a democratic right and I want to give it free to you. What does that mean? Again, I don't think you would probably see a telecom company in the future. You will probably not see, because it'll all become a content company in the future. It's all going to be driven by content. So if you pick up the balance sheet of Reliance Industries, for example, which is one of the largest organizations in the world, you would see that they're acquiring content companies, TV18, CNBC, they've got a large stake in there. The strategies are completely changing. So while I'm saying all this will change business to an extent that a company like a Xerox has been sold, and Fuji Xerox, it's become, what am I trying to get to here? What if I were to tell you that this is going to be available free to you? Would you believe this? What if I were to tell you that this phone, which is an iPhone, and maybe a 10 or whatever, is going to be available free to you? Would you believe me? It has to be literally available free to you, because if it's not available, you would not do 60% of your transactions. Whether it's Uber or Amazon or whatever that, none of these transactions would actually go through. So what I'm trying to impress upon you here is that while technology changes our life, and while businesses are changing, how would cybersecurity change for all of us? Would we even have the role of the CIO in the next 10 years? Would we even have the role of the CISOs in the next 10 years? All of these roles are going to go through a 360-degree transformation. And if we look at security, the cybersecurity essentially is going to be a completely 360-degree makeover. Why? Because there are these lot of processes. You could go on to World Economic Forum. Every industry is actually trying to digitize it. You look at those processes, it's going to be all digital. Insurance, for example, is going to be pay-per-use. So you don't pay insurance for the entire year. You pay it only when you drive a car. And if you drive a car, it's going to be like $1. If your driver drives a car, it could be like $2. If you go to a PIN code that is really not good, you will end up paying $3 and so on and so forth. Now, in all of this, where the technology systems are becoming more and more open and consumers are becoming producers, how does it look at cybersecurity? What happens is, in cybersecurity today, you actually protect your equipments. You try and protect your laptops. You try and protect your servers. Security is no longer going to be machines. Security is going to be for data. And data is going to be contextual. What it really means is the data that you have may be important to you, but I may have the same data and it may not be important to me. Just to give you a use case, you have a phishing attack, for example. A phishing attack actually could be of any bank, for example. You may not even have a bank account of the phishing attack that is happening with you. So essentially what you need to do in the future is actually to ring fence your systems, right? And as a company, we work on risk control solutions. And the only thing that we are trying to put up is a framework which says, can I ring fence your system? Can I tell you what is wrong in the system? Can I tell you who is the guy who's opening up the gates? And can I come back and tell you who's about to misuse it? So I just want to take you to the last slide. Just go down. Yeah, more. That's it. Go back. That's it. This is what we're doing. One of our technologies, which is on the bottom, it talks about security compliances. I'm sure all of you are aware about it. What it really does is it continuously assesses it and tells you what is wrong. The second technology that we have is privileged access management, which actually creates an arc on top of your entire IT infrastructure and data center, and even controls your administrator and root accounts and IT operations and all of that. Besides giving you efficiency, it actually tells you who's the one who's opening up the gates. And the third solution, and there are a lot of companies who've come here and spoken about the UBA. This UBA is slightly different. It actually works on a business use case. And this is the one who tells you who's about to misuse it. Why? Because the logs which are generated by our technologies, and the logs are not generated by native technologies. If you have native logs, sometimes the logs are not complete and it gets into a hound. But this creates a difference here because we're able to marry and mix and match our logs. So what we're essentially trying to create is a cybersecurity framework for the next generation, and especially for the digital world. So, well, ladies and gentlemen, just to wrap this up, go to the next slide. I think, well, the end is not near, but all of us would have to reimagine our skills, literally reimagine our skills, and maybe rewrite our stories as far as technology is concerned. So thank you so much for listening to me. I hope I have not taken too much time on this. And happy to have any questions.
Hi, Anil.
Hi.
Hi. Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can, please.
It was a wonderful presentation, actually. You talked about how today's technologies permeate the human life in every aspect, right? You showed us examples about Amazon, et cetera. Fantastic. And this is indeed going to be the future. My question to you is, in this age, in this modern age, we see the highest mobile penetration in this part of the world. We see the highest Twitter penetration. There's a social media explosion. There's so many things which is in your face today. In your opinion, what could be the top 3 fundamental priorities which any CIO in this room can take away from this presentation of yours? What should they do as a top 3 priority? You talked about identity management, you talked about user behavior analytics. That's all part of the maturity curve, right? In your opinion, what are the top 3 priorities?
Well, number 1, data. Number 2, data. And number 3, data. And I'll try and impress upon you why I'm saying this. Historically, we've been all chasing our tails, right? And we've been exponentially growing as well. We've invested in millions and millions of dollars on trying to secure the perimeter, right? So you would have the best of the best firewalls. And interestingly, you actually not buy a firewall from a single vendor, you actually buy it from 10 vendors, right? And you put up 10 such firewalls. Below the firewalls, you put up an IPS, an IDS, and all of those technologies. And you've tried to make the perimeter very strong. It's like buying the best security guard in the world, an MI16 standing outside your apartment door. But interestingly, 90% of the time, the main doors are open, and the bedroom doors are open, and the safes are open. I'm not sure if I may be able to relate to the CIOs here, but last 20 years that I've spent, you know, if I were to get into a large bank today and ask them, hey guys, can you give me the inventory as of now? They don't have that inventory. It just doesn't even come because there are so many VMs coming in, so many VMs going out. I'm not saying it's easy because it's so dynamic. What I'm trying to say is it's time for us to look at every piece of application that we have, every amount, every data that we collect, what is the context of the data, why is it important, and if we can flag this off today, your digital journey is going to be safer tomorrow. And if we don't flag it off today, you would continue to do firewalls and making sure that the iPhones are right and making sure that the containers are okay and running on all of that. Why would you want to protect the data which doesn't make sense to you, right? And why would you not protect the data which really, really makes sense to you? So single line, I think we need to now start looking at security from a data perspective. And believe me, your security budgets might even come down by 50%. Because half the time you bought the best of the solutions in the world, but 50% of the time you spend in trying to take out the false positives. So a CISO literally sits and says, oh, this is okay because I've got a ticket, this is okay because somebody's approved it, this is okay. 70% is okay. And the rest 20% business wants it, which means you're left with only 10%, right? So, well, my suggestion is I think it's really time for us to look at data and classify that appropriately.
Hi, Anil.
Hi.
Fantastic presentation.
Thank you.
You took us to the high-tech airport and Mac stores. Thank you very much. Even I recently experienced one of the Mac stores in Dubai, in Jumeirah, in Al Wasl Road.
Right.
One question, I have my colleagues here from, I'm from RAC Hospital, Ras Al Khaimah. My name is Unni Menon. My colleagues are here from Saudi German, Al-Zahra Hospital, Prime Hospital, and Canadian Hospital.
Sure.
So being in the healthcare industry, one of our, there are very seldom healthcare industry transform their data to cloud, okay? Because a lot of regulatory requirements and confidentiality and security. So for me, Arcon is one of the security solution partner.
Sure.
Right? So what you got to offer to us when, if at all, we move our database to cloud as far as security is concerned?
Wonderful. I think that's a brilliant question because half of us are struggling whether we should put something on the cloud. Half of us has actually put things on the cloud because it offers efficiency and stuff like that. I think cloud is interesting for both companies and vendors. For vendors, typically because if you have a lot of companies coming on the cloud, you actually be able to get into artificial intelligence. I would actually know from healthcare company A to B to C to Z that what is it that I need to focus on as a cloud offering or as a security offering on the cloud. So I think it's a great opportunity. But having said that, I think if we lose the sight of what we're going to put on the cloud, and again, ABC classification, my suggestion to you is that and to the community, especially in the healthcare, because records are very important. And believe me, privacy is going to become even more important tomorrow. right? It would just take 5 minutes for a hospital chain to close down if I were to do a select star on your tables. And believe me, that select star today is possible in your infrastructure. And if I were to just put it on Google, 10 minutes and the company is down. So my suggestion would be that you take it in phase 1, phase 2, phase 3. Phase 1, don't put something on the data that's going to destroy your company in the cloud to start with. And phase 2, then you start putting, because you're now flagging off your data, then you start putting your second category data, and then you take out the hard, and then you may want to put it, rather than putting the hard first. So could be right or wrong, but if you are sensitive about data and privacy, I think it's important for you to do that. Create a layer.
Thank you.
I mean, there's so much of complexities in the securities nowadays people are trying to bring in. Why should I keep security with me? Like, I outsource my IT, I need to outsource my security. What do you suggest? We should outsource the security or keep it inside?
I think you would have to outsource, I think you can outsource almost 70 to 80% of your security needs, because you may not have all the security experts, and you may not want to even invest time and energy on trying to do that, because business is more important for you. But saying that, the security is also very important for you. So there are companies, and as more and more cloud and service providers are engaging, you have the ability, because they use multiple technologies and systems, to be able to provide you what you need. So,
but I don't have a data center. It's in the cloud.
Right.
Applications, all applications nowadays are coming as SaaS applications. Probably in next 2 years' time.
Would you need security because everything is in the cloud?
The security provision should be inbuilt into the SLAs of the service providers.
Well, I've dealt with, in my consulting avatar, I go to almost every audit committee meeting, which is of a large, more than 10, 20, $50 billion companies. And believe me, cloud is not as safe as you think it would be, because at the end of the day, our database is a database. At the end of the day, an operating system is an operating system. At the end of the day, a router is a router. And in fact, as a matter of fact, you don't even know who's accessing what they're in cloud. So
you don't know. If an application isn't provided, you don't have access to the database. You don't have access to anything.
I have got, if your data is in cloud, and if you're accessing maybe, say, an accounting solution in cloud, for example, accounting solution would have the first layer, the second layer, and the third layer, which means the database is in the cloud. There is no way that it's not in the cloud, which means the cloud providers, service providers, you don't even know whether he's outsourcing those operations or that is in-house. And either ways, people are accessing your data. I had the digital transformation for the largest institute, which is the Chartered Accounting Institute in our country, which is more than 1 million students and 3 lakh members, largest accountancy profession. We started to put this on the cloud. Eventually, we realized that I have got so many records in the cloud, and I have no control over it. So my suggestion would be to cut the chase. There is no harm in putting it into the cloud, but if you have to have visibility. So either there is a third party which is controlling all that you're doing in the cloud, or you have your team controlling doing it in your cloud. Or maybe the cloud provider offers you the entire bouquet of security solutions and gives you a visualization that that is where your heart is and I'm protecting your heart. So I think you would need it very, very strongly, and you would need to tread on it very, very carefully, because the data just goes out 1 in a million time, and the companies come down very fast. So literally, you need to protect it. You don't have a choice in today's world.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. Pleasure to be here.